Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our next episode of our Queanbeyan East Public School Community Channel podcast. It's great that we can bring this episode to you guys. So just to refresh our community channel, the whole aim of this is to present information and to get some information out to our community and to start the conversation in many ways about some of the complexities of education and really talking in depth about some key fundamental topics around education and just getting that information out there so that it can help us all work together to support the kids that come into Queanbeyan East Public School every day. So today we are joined by Helen McPherson. Hello, Helen.
Hello, good morning.
So Helen is a teacher here at Queanbeyan East. She's joined us. She's been with us for a couple of years now, Helen. And the amazing thing about Helen, or what is fantastic about her, is that Helen is an early childhood teacher. She's worked in a range of different settings. She has got a world of experience. So maybe, Helen, do you reckon we could just start by just let the listeners know maybe a little bit about yourself and about the experience that you've got working particularly with with young kids?
Okay, absolutely. I've been teaching children between the ages of 4 and 8 this is my 22nd year of teaching students. So that's definitely where my focus has been, on those early year students. I've taught internationally in schools and also here in Australia in the ACT and in New South Wales and briefly in Victoria as well. So I've had a lot of experience working with different curriculums and different frameworks around schools.
Yeah, wonderful, Helen. And so the reason we have Helen joining us today is because today's episode is going to be all around starting school, all about when is the right time to start school at primary school, because I think of all the decisions that parents make throughout child's schooling, this is one of the big ones. It really is a big one for many parents about when to start their child at school. And I think it's probably the conversation that as educators we have the most with parents coming in. We talk about starting school and what's the right time and what that looks like or what that doesn't look like. And so we wanted to maybe put some thoughts down on a podcast just to get that out there and to help people try and navigate their ways through starting school. And you'll hear us use this phrase about school readiness as well. So that's what we'll be talking a lot about. It'll be about when to start school readiness and the complexities around that. But we might even start by talking about the legislation and the policies and the things that underpin when children start school, because this is the first bit of complication that parents are often asked to navigate. Children can start school. Well, children must start school. The legislation is that children must start school the day they turn 6 years old. Now, yes, I did say day they start. However, for operational reasons and for school reasons and for community reasons and for home reasons, what that then looks like is the year they turn 6. But it's actually in the legislation, it's actually the day they turn 6. So at the oldest point, kids need to be at school the year they turn 6. But it's often at the other end of the spectrum that we have conversations. And Helen, what's the minimum age that someone can be when they start kindergarten?
Have turned 5 on or before the 31st of July. So
right. So that's the year of kindergarten. They need to be turning 5 of the 31st of July.
Yes.
So what that actually means is that in any year, in any kindergarten class, in any school in New South Wales, when the kids walk through for the very first day, there can actually be an 18-month age difference between the youngest child in that room and the oldest child in that room.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of that trepidation or uncertainty about when to start. For some of our parents out there, their children will be turning 5, in halfway through, towards the end of the year, and so for them, it is a very straightforward and easy decision as to when they start school. But for some parents, particularly for those parents who have a child that is turning 5 in that first half of the year, there's a big decision to be made, isn't there? Because,
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because what it means is they could start their child that year that they turn 5. So we're talking about a child that would turn 5 between January and the end of July.
Yeah.
So for those children, they could start that year. Or they could start the following year.
That's right.
Yep, which means that they would be turning 6 halfway through the following year. Big decisions to be made. Now, what we talk about here at school when we're talking about whether or not it's best, I suppose, for the child to start school is we use this phrase about school readiness. And a lot of the time, what people think we mean by school readiness is that we're expecting them to come in and read and write and to do those things. But that's not exactly true, is it, Helen? What do you...
No.
What if I said the word school readiness to you, what do you... What does that mean to you?
Okay. There's a lot of factors that do determine school readiness, I like to call it the transition to school, because it is a social process coming to school, and so we do need to have the child and the school as well ready for children at the start of the year. But from a more, I guess, psychological point of view in regards to school readiness, there's a couple of points that we really look for. Probably the number one thing is independence. We want children to be able to do things like put on their own jumper and take their jumper off, unwrap their school lunches, be able to open packets, be able to use scissors, those sort of things, be able to do that independently, because often kindergarten classes have between 17 and 20 students. So
And if I can just stop you for a second,
yeah,
sorry,
of course.
Helen, but if I can stop you for a second too, what is really critical to remember in this is that it's not about making things easier for the teacher. So when we're talking about school readiness, we're not for a second saying that it's about being things easier for the teacher. What we're trying to have this discussion about is that for all children, there are developmental markers throughout the way. From when a child is born through to later on in life, there's these developmental markers that are in place, that are well known. And when we talk about things like independence, the reason we're saying these things and the reason we're articulating things like using scissors or putting jumpers on and off or those things, it's because that those things are developmental markers of a child, that when they hit those markers, when they are experiencing those things, it means that they are at that point where they are most likely to succeed in that educational journey and at that start of school, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's also, we want them to be successful and to achieve success in the classroom. And by having those skills, they can be independent and they can do these things when they need to. They don't necessarily need assistance with that. So we're really looking at it from the social point of view of saying, for example, I'm hot, I need to take my jumper off, and they can do that independently, and they feel that success by being able to do that.
Yeah, and look, the transition to school is a really well-worn path. Obviously, we know that it's a learning experience. Obviously, we know that kids, there's always an extra set of hands in kindergarten at the start of the year to help those kids develop those skills and all those things. And we're not for a second saying that kids need to be starting school fully independent and being able to put a jumper on off 100% of the time and to be, we fully understand the 5-year-old child where they are developmentally. But what we're trying to get across is that these are some of the things that we can look at and that we can talk about to try and come up with that help, trying to come up with support for people who are going through that tricky time of, do I start my child this
Yeah.
year, or do I start them again next year?
Exactly. And that's going back again to the transition to school. We do understand pretty much the whole year's a massive transition. And we do understand that children are unique and they do have different needs at different stages. And we're certainly able to meet those to the best that we can.
If there are concerns for parents about school readiness, and we're explicitly talking about for those families who have got a child who is turning 5 in the first half of the year that they may potentially start in kindergarten. And a lot of the time for those parents, for those carers, they have these real concerns, or they just don't know if they should start their child that year, or what would be described as holding them back, quote unquote, and start them again the next year. The difficult part with this conversation is that there's no right answer for every single child, and that every single child is different, and that there is, for some kids, starting earlier does work, and it is what's right, and they find are very successful in everything that they do. For other kids who are the exact same age, it doesn't quite work, and they may have benefited from starting a little bit later. There's no easy answer.
No, there's not.
And that's, I suppose, so for us, and part of the reason for us to do this was that we wanted to try and give a bit of our information, or give a bit of that school-based information to parents so that they could make. So what are some of the things that parents can look for? What are some of the things that parents might want to keep in their mind when trying to make this difficult decision about whether to start their child at school or not?
Okay, there's a few points that parents can reflect on if they're making this decision. Probably the main one, because kindergarten and school readiness goes beyond just their academic abilities, we also look at things like their social skills and their communication abilities, and their independence as well. Do they separate well from you when they're going to places where you're not going to be? We really would like children to be able to be positive and comfortable in their separation from their parents, because this year it's really important for it to be a positive year when they're starting school. We really want the process to be a positive and a really happy one.
Yeah, and we are talking about school readiness, aren't we? And I think I'll get back to this point that for it is looking at a child's developmental stages.
That's right.
All children from birth to through to adolescence and on to adulthood, there are these key markers that happen, that children develop in that period of time, and there are some things to look for to see whether or not your child is ready to start school, or that they are best placed. Because at the end of the day, for some kids, that they would benefit from having an additional year at home in order to develop those skills as they naturally would. It's probably about trying not to start students too early.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and again, I would bring back to the point, it's not about making it easier for the school. That's not what we're talking about. It's all about what's best for the child, and to try and help parents make that really, really difficult decision about when to start school. And we know that there are so many factors affecting this. It's about there's external factors of the family as well. There's work commitments, there is social commitments. There are things that happen in and around the family which also are driving forces as to when to start school. But what we're talking about here is really looking at, for those kids who are maybe on the younger side, looking at whether or not starting them at that age, or having the ability to keep them at home, or indeed preschool,
Yes.
and then developing a bit more, so developing those skills a bit more in order to start. Are there other things? What about that independence you spoke of,
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
What does that really look like? If someone, for a kid who's really not, I suppose, ready or developmentally at that point where they would get the most out of school, what would that look like, do you think?
Even things like unwrapping their school lunches, if their school lunch is in a bag or wrapped in Glad wrap or even wrapped in paper, if they can undo that by themselves, that's a big
really
marker as well.
Yeah, it's a really good sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? And so if your child, if you're having this conversation at home about whether or not your child is ready to start school, and maybe there's someone who really isn't at all independent, is solely reliant on mum, dad, or the carer in the house to do those things. So if your child is solely reliant on someone else to to do things around feeding, or to do things around clothing.
Yes, taking jumpers on and off, shoes on and off, that sort of thing.
Toileting is another one as well,
absolutely.
because toileting is it's a really big thing, believe it or not, when you come to school for the first time, because what toilets look like in a school setting are vastly different to a preschool and extremely different to the home setting as well. So it really is about making sure that they're independent. And now this is not to say that all kids come to school and that they are 100% independent all the time and that they can easily get jumpers on and off and unpack lunch boxes. Of course, we always have extra sets of hands in kindergarten in those early weeks and months,
yes,
to help out those critical points and to help developing those independent skills. But what we are saying is that if your child is exceptionally reliant on mum, dad, or another person within the family home to do those tasks, toileting, dressing, eating. What are some of the things, Helen, that we could advise, I suppose, or help parents to think about, maybe that they could start doing now to preparing their kid for school?
Okay, yeah, there's lots that parents can do to help children be ready for the first big day. We would recommend lots of play dates. Social skills, as I mentioned before, is a major part of kindergarten as well. A lot of students are learning for the first time to work with children their own age and also to work with adults and even children, older children as well. So play dates and lots of time to catch up with friends and children their own age and even of other ages is a great way to develop those skills. Yeah.
One of those big things that kids learn in school is around playing and interacting with one another, and there is a whole heap of research and things around how kids' development changes and the play-based learning and playing and how it varies as kids get older. But so a lot of a way that you can help your child getting ready for school or preparing is playing lots of games together as a family with other kids their own age, similar ages. Learning how to win, learning how to lose as well.
Take turns, another one.
That's a huge one, isn't it, Helen?
Yeah,
because
it certainly is.
That's that change between egocentrical play and then cooperative play, which are these a couple of different markers for children's development that they go through. And so when it's a cooperative play, it's exactly what the word says. It's all about taking turns and winning and losing and those things. Yeah. And big suggestion I would say would be going on a picnic. Enjoy it when the sun's out. Go on a picnic and take a lunchbox. Take a water bottle.
Great practice. Yeah.
Yeah, really good practice. And going through food that you eat at lunchtime and food that you eat at recess time, and lunchboxes and water bottles. There are so many lunchboxes and water bottles on the market.
That's it.
But it needs to be something that a 5-year-old child or your child can actually use themselves. So make sure that they're comfortable in using that, getting it in and out of bags. Practice packing a bag, put a name on absolutely
yes, please.
Everything.
You can get these really great stickers that have great little pictures and they're really engaging and they're great for sticking on everything from jumpers to water bottles.
And we talk about that too, don't we? Like people often think about starting school and do they need to know the alphabet or the sounds or how to read or write or count numbers? The big thing, their name. If they can recognise their name, it's not about, they'll learn to write their name pretty quickly.
Yes.
But it's recognising their name is a really big help. So I would be doing picnics, lunches, lunch boxes, water bottles, practising jumpers on and off. toileting practice as well.
That's always a good one.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a big one. And if you are a parent of a little boy, I would suggest showing them what a urinal is as well. That's something that is very different to the toilets at a school as opposed to the toilets that are at home. So
Yep.
doing those things. What else, Helen? Are there any other things?
Keep talking to your child. Keep talking to them about how they're feeling about the day. Talk to them about what the day's going to look like. Really talk to them about how there's going to be other children. They might know some children that are there if there's other children that have been to preschool with them or maybe friends from the local area. Just keep talking to them, answer all their questions. Just that reassurance that it's going to be a big change and a big adventure, but that you are going to be there to support them through that as well.
There is so much online. The Department of Education, so if you do a bit of a Google search for New South Wales Department of Education school readiness, there is lots of information there already about some advice, and a lot of it reflects what Helen and I have been talking about today, but have a look at some of those brochures and flyers that are out there and some of that. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, Helen, before we go?
No, not at this stage, but it's such an exciting time for parents and for children and for teachers as well. So it's just a great chance. So let's make the most of it and
Yeah, well said, Helen. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Did you eat at recess time? And, lunch boxes and water bottles. There are so many lunch boxes and water bottles on the market.
That's it.
But it needs to be something that a 5-year-old child or your child can actually use themselves. So make sure that they're comfortable in using that, getting it in and out of bags, practice packing a bag, put a name on absolutely
yes, please.
everything.
You can get these really great stickers that have great little pictures and they're really engaging and they're great for sticking on everything from jumpers to water bottles.
And we talk about that too, don't we? Like people often think about starting school and do they need to know the alphabet or the sounds or how to read or write or count numbers? The big thing, their name. If they can recognise their name, it's not about, they'll learn to write their name pretty quickly.
Yes.
But it's recognising their name is a really big help. So I would be doing picnics, lunches, lunch boxes, water bottles, practicing jumpers on and off.
Yep.
Toileting practice as well.
That's always a good one.
Yeah, it's a big one. And if you are a parent of a little boy, I would suggest showing them what a urinal is as well. That's something that is very different to the toilets at a school as opposed to the toilets that are at home. So doing those things. What else, Helen? Are there any other things?
Keep talking to your child. Keep talking to them about how they're feeling about the day. Talk to them about what the day's going to look like. Really talk to them about how there's going to be other children. They might know some children that are there if there's other children that have been to preschool with them or maybe friends from the local area. Just keep talking to them, answer all their questions. Just that reassurance that it's going to be a big change and a big adventure, but that you are going to be there to support them through that as well.
There is so much online. The Department of Education, so if you do a bit of a Google search for New South Wales Department of Education school readiness, there is lots of information there already about some advice, and a lot of it reflects what Helen and I have been talking about today, but have a look at some of those brochures and flyers that are out there and some of that. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, Helen, before we go?
No, not at this stage, but it's such an exciting time for parents and for children and for teachers as well. So it's just a great chance. So let's make the most of it and
Yeah, well said, Helen. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, everyone.